today. So, welcome everyone and good evening. Um, we are going to conduct this session, or we have planned to conduct this session to talk about CAT 2025. And it's a very opportune kind of a coincidence that just yesterday, um, the results for CAT 24 were actually released. So, we wanted to convey a lot of things that we feel are pertinent to preparing for the CAT examination, especially considering the fact that about 11 months are left for preparation. And yesterday's results being declared and the kind of results that we all have actually witnessed is reinforcing a lot of things that all three mentors have been experiencing in GradSquare and what we believe is the essence of the CAT paper. So this entire session's intent is to communicate to you what we have learned about the examination as a whole, what works, what does not work, what is the paper all about, and give you a kind of a guidance in order to make you better equipped to face this challenge next year. So this entire session is supposed to be an awareness building session. It is to clarify all your doubts. It's to understand the kind of efforts that you need to put in going into CAT 2025, what all milestones in preparation you should be looking forward to, what all mistakes you should not commit. All of these we'll be covering in this session. And we don't want this session to be just a discussion among the three of us. It's not a podcast. It is supposed to be an interactive session. So make sure that if you've got any questions at any point of time during this entire session, that you are putting forth your questions on the chat as and when it's possible. One of us will take up the questions and we will be replying to you. So let this be a very interactive session. Let this be beneficial to you. Only if your doubts get clarified will this session actually make sense for the both of us. Right. So having said that, firstly, we are the three co-founders and the chief mentors at GradSquare. So we have been doing this for the last about 17 years, and we have all been very closely associated with this academic and test prep industry. And not just that, all three of us are also career counselors. So not only do we help people prepare for the CAT examination and GRE and GMAT as well, but we also help students get into their dream bachelor's and master's degrees in colleges and universities across the world. So if you've got any career related questions and doubts also, you can feel free to post it on the chat as we go through the session. Broadly speaking, this session's agenda is right here in front of you. So we are going to be looking at the CAT paper pattern. We are going to do a deep dive into the three sections of the paper and understand that what are the intricacies and nuances that are involved in preparing for these three sections. We are going to also discuss at what score, what percentile is secured every year in the CAT paper. That will help us better understand that how much do we have to attempt, and it will actually tell us the philosophy of the paper as well. You have attempted CAT 24. That's great, Deepak. So you will be familiar with a lot of things that we'll be discussing here. But at the same time, I think even if you've attempted CAT 24, this session will add a bit of value as far as preparation for next year is concerned. If you are attempting CAT, if you're planning to attempt CAT 25 as well. We will discuss the basic fundamentals and what we need to keep in mind while you're preparing for CAT preparation, the very common mistakes that people make when they plan ahead towards CAT 25. And throughout the course of preparation, every year students tend to commit a pattern of mistakes. So what are those mistakes and how to avoid them? Then for repeat candidates, so if anyone has taken 24 and is also planning to take 25, then what all things do you need to keep in mind, and how is your preparation going to be different from the ones who are going to be taking CAT 25 as their first CAT attempt? And finally, we will also discuss whether we believe that formal coaching and formal classes for a paper like CAT is required or not. So let's start off with the CAT paper pattern. I think that several of you must be familiar with the pattern of the paper. So paper has always consisted of three sections: verbal ability and reading comprehension, data interpretation and logical reasoning, and quantitative ability. Last year, CAT 24's paper pattern is right here in front of you. We had 24 questions in VRC, 22 in DILR, and 22 in Quant. So this should not be a 66. This should be a total of 68 questions, right? And each question has got a +3 -1 kind of a weightage if it is a multiple choice question. And if it's a non-multiple choice question, then it has a +3 for a correct answer and no negative marking for a wrong answer. So which means a 68 into 3, the total marks of this paper last year or this year's CAT paper was 204. And in 2 hours, you have to take this paper and you are given 40 minutes for each section. And you have to spend the entirety of 40 minutes in a particular section and the paper automatically moves on to the next. So you cannot move back and forth between the sections. The first section is VRC. So you'll have to spend your entire time in the VRC section. Then you have to, then your paper will move on automatically to the logical reasoning section of the paper where you have to spend your entire 40 minutes. And then the last 40 minutes will be dedicated completely to the quantitative ability section. Right. Let me also take this opportunity to talk briefly about the syllabus of the paper. See, verbal ability and reading comprehension part of the paper, as the name suggests, is a language-based aptitude section of the paper. People often call it the English language section, but I believe that that's not the correct word to use to describe this particular section, because English language skills and capabilities are not tested in this section at all. So there is no questions of vocabulary, there is no questions that will test grammar. Rather, what this entire section is about is whether you can read content and you can make sense of it and you can critically analyze it or not. Majority of the questions, 16 out of 24 questions, belong to reading comprehension part of the paper, where you have to read a passage which is about, say, 500 words long, and you'll have to make sense of what the passage is trying to communicate. And using the information in the passage, you have to answer questions. So this is all about reading and understanding what text is trying to say. And even the remaining 8 questions are broadly related to whether you can read and comprehend content in the language of English or not. Followed by DLR section, where you have got logical puzzles and graphical data, and then questions asked based on those data. So this section was this year divided into 5 sets. So 5 sets, 2 sets of 5 questions, and 3 sets of 4 questions each. And in every set, you are given data, and then using the data, you have to solve the 5 or 4 questions of that particular set. All of the sets are phrased in the form of a logical puzzle, or you are given graphical data in terms of tables or pie charts or bar diagrams or line graphs or histograms, and you'll have to use the data to calculate and get to the answers of questions. And finally comes the quantitative ability part of the paper, which I think everyone is very, very familiar with. This is the aptitude, the mathematical aptitude part of the paper. Several of you must have taken it for your placement examinations. If you're sitting for college placements, or even at the time of any kind of a job interview, most of the times there is a mathematical aptitude paper that we give, and this section is very similar to that. You have certain topics that you have to cover as part of the syllabus, and your basic fundamentals of those concepts in the topic of mathematics is tested in this section of the paper. But despite calling it a mathematics section, I don't think that this section is even core mathematics, because nothing from higher level mathematics of 11th and 12th is present in this section of the paper. So you don't have anything like calculus or limits and differentiation or conic sections. You only have basic mathematics, majority of which all of us have studied in our class 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 syllabus. So basics of arithmetic, very, very fundamentals of algebra, geometry, some number theory, some permutations, combinations, and probability based questions. So majority of the syllabus is from your class 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 syllabus. And only fundamentals are tested. So no higher level mathematical concepts are tested in this paper at all. So at face value, this paper is actually pretty simple. Why? Because there is hardly any syllabus for the first 2 sections. It's not like you have to acquire any kind of theoretical knowledge to solve questions of VRC or the DLR section. Only in the quantitability section, you'll have to cover some syllabus, but then that syllabus is from till your class 10th mathematics. So even that syllabus does not seem very daunting to cover. So then what makes the paper very, very difficult? Well, definitely it's not the syllabus. I'll tell you one level of difficulty is present right here in front of you in the screen itself, which is a 2-hour duration. That we have to maximize our number of attempts and get a lot of questions correct within the stipulated time, which is what is a major challenge that this paper poses. And on top of that, what else makes cracking this paper difficult is your competition. So there are people who are preparing rigorously for this examination day in, day out. So the more prepared you are, the better you'll be able to perform than others. Because at the end of the day, your calls to the top B schools of the country are going to be dependent upon how much better than the other aspirants you're performing. So Kushal, Ajay sir, do you have anything to add with respect to the pattern of the paper or the syllabus itself?
No, Varun, I think this is good to go ahead.
Yeah, good.
Right. So if this is clear, then let's move on to the 3 sections one by one. By the way, before we move on to the 3 sections, I'll tell you that in our classes at GradSquare, I am the one who takes up the mantle as far as VRC is concerned. I conduct majority of the VRC classes for CAT students. Kushal conducts majority of the QA classes, and Ajay sir conducts most of the LRDA classes. So what are these 3 sections about? And what do we need to keep in mind while you're preparing for it? We will take up according to our own area of expertise. So let me start off by talking about the VRC section. The verbal ability and reading comprehension part of the paper. What is exactly tested? So first thing that I want to emphasize here is that when you're preparing for the VRC section, the biggest thing that we are actually trying to develop as a skill, as I said before, is not command of the English language or grammar. What we have to develop as a skill is patience. I feel that this Gen Z, not just Gen Z, I think even millennials and every one of us at this day and age, because of so much of short form content in the form of reels and shorts have lost patience and the ability to focus for longer periods of time. And if we cannot focus on one singular thing for longer periods of time, then the VRC session we will not be able to clear at all. Because just for solving reading comprehension exercises, I will have to read 4 passages 500 words long and then analyze the text which is given inside it to figure out what are the answers to 16 questions. Beyond that, also in the remaining 8 questions, I have to still read maybe another 800 to 1000 odd words. So much of reading has to be done in 40 minutes. So if we are not patient and if we have a scatterbrain that our attention span has become so minimal that I get distracted very easily, then I'm going to struggle to score well in this section of the paper. So developing patience, sitting in one place, focusing on one particular thing is extremely important a skill in order to ace this particular section of the paper. Second thing that is going to help people a lot if you are wanting to score well in this section is that you have to improve reading speed. So already we have established the fact that you will have to read about 2000 to 3000 words in order to solve questions in this particular section. So the faster you read, the faster your capability to read and comprehend, the more questions you'll be able to attempt and the better your scores are going to be. And this is that section of the paper where you can actually maximize your number of attempts. In quant and especially in the DLR section, it will not be possible to attempt too many questions because there is so much of calculation and so much of analysis which is required. But in the VRC section, you can read and you can make sense of the questions. You can figure out which options are right or wrong, and you can actually get to the correct answers very quickly, provided you read quickly. So improving reading speed is very important. And the best way to improve reading speed is by reading sustainably, constantly, content from as many different sources as possible on a daily basis. So improving reading speed is something that we have to work on over the course of the next 1 year. And when we are trying to improve upon our reading speed, what we also need to do is that we need to go beyond our comfort zone when we are reading on a daily basis. See, it's very simple to read fast when the content is very familiar to us or we are very, very interested in the content that we are reading. For example, I keep on telling this in my classes also, that how do boys read the newspaper? They will look at the first page. Immediately after reading the headlines of the first page, they will turn to the last page. Why? Because that's where the sports section is. Everyone gets very comfortable reading about sports. So they read that part of the paper, then they fold the paper and throw it away and they don't read anything else. Why? Because most of us are not interested in what lies in the middle pages of the newspaper. But if we want to do well inside the CAT examination, we have to venture beyond our comfort zone and read things that we are not genuinely interested in and try to find our interest there as well. Why? Because CAT reading comprehension passages can be picked up from as diverse a subject matter as you can think of. Over the course of the last 5 years itself, you name a subject and there's a CAT reading comprehension passage picked up from that particular subject. We have had passages from politics, economics, business, science, technology, movies, music, architecture, literature, sociology, philosophy, anthropology. You name a subject and we have had passages from that particular topic. Now, if on the day of the examination, I come across a particular topic that I'm not interested in, then automatically my reading speed and my comprehending capability will drop. And that is what leads to a disaster for most of the people in this section of the paper. So to ace this section of the paper, we have to improve reading speed, we have to get into the reading habit, and we have to develop a lot of patience, and we have to move beyond our comfort zone. And last but not least, the most important thing to do in order to ace this particular section of the paper is that we have to practice reading comprehension exercises on a daily basis. See, people might tell you that there are about 4 different types of questions that you will come across in this paper. But 16 questions are reading comprehension, and this year 3 more questions were from summary. So summary is basically you'll be given a short passage and you will have to find the option which best summarizes the idea of the passage. So these 19 questions out of a total of 24 questions are all heavily dependent upon whether we can read and make sense of content in English. And if we cannot do well in the 19 questions of the paper, then the remaining 5 questions are definitely not going to take my score very far. And the only way to improve or to get better at reading comprehensions is to practice reading comprehensions. Practicing reading comprehension exercises leads to multiple different benefits. Number one, it will make you sit in one place and read content. Number two, it will help you familiarize with the different types of questions that you can expect in the reading comprehension exercises. And number three, and the most important skill is that it will help you understand how to reason out why the wrong options are wrong and why the right options are right. The more we practice, the better our knack of determining which options are wrong and which options are right becomes. So every single day for 1 year, if someone can practice reading comprehension exercises, even if they solve one single reading comprehension exercise with 4 to 5 questions every single day without fail, very religiously, and understanding why they are practicing that so particular exercise and how do they arrive at the answers. And if they sit and they look at their mistakes and then figure out that, okay, this is the reason why I'm making a mistake, this is how I have to change my thought process in order to get to the correct answer. If someone can do that, then that is going to be enough for most people to improve and get a good score, a decent, a respectable score in this section of the paper. So that is what the VRC section is all about. Next, let's move on to the LRDA section. So, Ajay sir, you can take over this.
Now, just carrying on from what Varun just spoke about how getting better at reading really helps you on this paper. I would say it is not just verbal ability and reading comprehension section where you get better if you are good at reading, but if you look at your LRDI section, you effectively are reading, let's say, a 300 word comprehension before even you put your pen to the paper to start solving the logical reasoning part. Or if you look at the quantitative ability section paper where you have lengthy questions to read right from the first line to the last line, it is a small summary passage that you are actually reading. So it is imperative for every student to get better at reading skills if you want to ace this paper in any section for that matter, and not just the VRC as a section.
Okay,
I
I
completely
want
agree.
to
Yes, sir.
add a small thing to the VRC section. You know what Varun has talked about, just adding on to it. See, a lot of times students do come get back to me and tell me, they've been reading a lot of newspaper, they've been reading a lot of, articles, from New York Times, Guardian, and all kind of essays, Smithsonian, and all that, right? Now, that's one part of your preparation, and that cannot be your only part of preparation. The part of reading will make you comfortable with varied and diverse topics that you will handle. But every single day, you still are going to do a reading comprehension passage. Put that, feel that pressure of sitting there and racing against time to read and finish the passage. And then look at your comprehension from the point of view of whether you are able to answer the questions correctly. Because this, if you do on a day-to-day basis, every single day, let's say by the time you are at CAT, if you start now, you're going to have done about 300, 350 passages, correct? And that's big, and you would have had so much more of learning. You would have gone through different kind of passages. You would have built up your speed because you're consciously and deliberately making an attempt day in, day out to, finish that passage on time, right? And you are also looking at understanding each and every kind of question and figuring out, what is the nuance of that question and how do you answer that question. So very important, make sure that you do that reading comprehension test every single day without fail, whatever you may be reading apart from that, right? So let's go on to LRDI.
Right. Let's talk about LRDA section. So, Ajay sir, you can take over. So, first thing.
So will I be able to control this?
No, sir. I will
Yeah.
then show
Okay.
all the points.
Yeah. See, one of the major issues, that people face, every time they look at the DILR section is to, go blank and say, what do I now prepare? Because DILR does not have any structure, right? It does not have a specific syllabus. We don't know what is going to come in the CAT paper, what is not. Because last year's CAT paper, if you look at it, was very LR heavy. This year's CAT paper, if you look at 3 of the sets out of the 5 were DI sets, right? It's very unpredictable. Also, when you are actually taking your entire material and looking at it, you will see so many different kind of questions. So you are always at this stage and always at this point saying that, I'm next, even after preparing really, really hard each and every day, the next day when you open up, you're going to see a new set of questions out there. And you'll feel as if, you're not prepared anything, you're looking at a completely new set out there, right? Now, this problem every single person faces. And when you're getting into the CAT, sometimes you will encounter out of the 4 sets which are given there or 5 sets which are given there, 2 of them are completely new kind of set. You have never even seen those kind of sets before. And that is what takes you aback. And that's why, a lot of people have problem preparing for LRDI. And also, when it comes to CAT, being very unpredictable in terms of what's going to happen in the CAT paper, and they go very underconfident with the DLR paper. So how do you then set this right? What are the steps that you need to take in the next few months that you have from here on to the next November, and make sure that you go confident to the DILR paper. Okay, first thing, DILR is all about practice. and it's about rigorous practice. It's about having that question with you and living with that question for the whole day, not giving up, looking at that question again and again, trying to figure out, can you, find that trick to solve it, right? And I've seen this a lot many times that people pick up a question, spend about 10 minutes on that question, and then after that, by the time that 10 minutes is over, they just go through the solution and they're happily looking at the solution and they understand the solution. They feel okay, work is done. Work is not done. You need to leave with that question for the day, which means you're going to pick up the question, spend 15 minutes. If you're not able to move forward, close the question. Afternoon, pick up the question again, go through that with a very fresh mind again. Figure out whether you can do the question and solve it. If not, close the question again, night again. Spend a good amount of time before you actually look at the solution. If you don't do that, you are absolutely not going to do that question if it comes up again in front of you. 6 months later, you're going to struggle with that question again. Okay. Every single day, one set of LR and one set of DI. That's your target. And that is something that you have to religiously follow, be regular, and there should be absolutely no excuse of not doing that one set of LR and DI every single day from today onwards. Right? That means by the time you are reaching your CAT, you're going to have about 500 to 600 odd sets that you would have done. And that is more than enough to, crack the CAT paper. Right? Second part, if you look at this year's paper, 3 of the sets in among the 5 which were there were DI sets. Now you cannot do DIs unless and until you have aced arithmetic. So arithmetic is the key to crack that DI set, right? So percentages, ratios, proportions, things like mixtures and solutions sometimes, things like statistics, averages. These are all areas where you need to spend enough amount of time because these are going to be applied in your DI as well. And without having a strong arithmetic base, you will not be able to crack the DI sets. You will not get that confidence to crack it, right? Second thing, I want you to do as many DI sets also because I want you to be as familiar with the graphs as much as possible. So when you look at a graph, you should be able to interpret that graph, understand what that graph is all about. You should be able to figure out, what exactly the axis is all about. What is it talking about? Percentage? Is it talking about absolute value? Is it an absolute value graph, a percentage change graph, or is it a bar graph, which is a direct graph, or a histogram kind of a graph? It should be very clear the moment you see the graph. If you're not able to read graph, then you are in trouble because you may be misinterpreting the question when you're sitting in the CAT, and then you may not be able to solve the question, right? Another very important part of the DI is set theory. Because every year, if you look at the DI paper, there is one question which comes from set theory. And this question is, again, all about math. You're going to have a set theory class, which will be there in the quants part, which Kushal will be taking. I want you to be thorough with that chapter because that one chapter is very key because when you get a DI question, which is based on set theory, you should be able to crack it. There is no way that you should leave it and come because it's going to be the easiest question in the paper. And that's what I keep telling students, DI is going to be the easier part of DILR. Why? Because if you understand the question, you just have to solve it. There is nothing apart from that. On the other hand, LR, you're going to sit there and still think, figure out how to go forward, look at, each and every aspect of it. If you're able to get it through, you crack it. Otherwise, probably 7 minutes down the line, you're going to leave the question and move ahead. Right? DI, that will never happen. It's all about calculation. Another important thing, I want you to get very comfortable with numbers. And I've seen people using calculators while solving the question even in the class. And I discourage students from doing that because if you're going to use your calculator for every single calculation that you're doing, you're going to be becoming so uncomfortable with calculating even with a 2 by 2 number, 2 digit by 2 digit multiplication. And that's going to be very, very detrimental to your, DI section. Why? Because you'll not have speed. Now, what do you do instead of using a calculator? Why don't you have a place, if you have a study table, stick a table, all the tables there, write it down and keep looking at the table as you're doing the calculations. 10 times, 15 times that you look at the same table again and again, you will memorize that table. And it'll become easier for you to do the calculation when you're sitting there in the CAT and you're not going to use a 2 digit by 2 digit multiplication, just like that using a calculator, which is such a waste of time because the calculator that you get in the CAT does not work on the keyboard. It works with the mouse. And that's so much more time consuming. You can use the calculator for a 4-digit number multiplied by 4-digit number kind of, calculations, but not for a 2 by 2 kind of, calculation at all. So get very comfortable with numbers, know your squares, know your cubes, know all the tables at least up till 15. And that's going to be very, very crucial when it comes to solving DI sets on time, right? Now, every time you start doing a question, and you keep on doing this for day in day out, what is going to happen is you're going to solve about 500 600 sets by the time you reach cat. Now, why is this very important? Because you can't improve upon the LR, especially the LR part, unless and until you have solved enough number of questions, because every LR set that you're going to see is going to be different. Every LR set is going to pose a different challenge. Some of them are games and tournaments question. Some of them are number puzzles. Some of them are, completely different questions on networks. Some of them are just arrangements, matrix, linear, circular. I don't know what. Sometimes questions are also of DI, which looks like an LR, which looks like a DI question, but it's an LR question because it also has got lot of numbers and puzzles to deal with, right? So whatever it is, you can't be prepared for DILR section unless and until you have done at least 500 sets by the CAT paper. And what is it going to do to you if you do 500, 600 sets? You're going to become more and more familiar. And the more you become familiar, you'll become more confident with your mock. Because when you look at the mock and when you see 5 sets out there, you will be able to select the 3 questions that you want to do with very, very easily, as compared to a person who has absolutely no familiarity with the DILR section because he's not done enough questions. So familiarity is the key, and to get familiar, you have to practice, practice, and practice. That's the only thing that you have to do in DILR, and that too continuously without break, day in, day out.
So
I
just want to add to that. Yeah. Adding to that, the fourth point that when sir is saying that you would have solved and practiced 500 sets. No, why reaching that 500 mark is very important is because I've seen students every year, they give up on LRDI very easily. Because in the beginning, LRDI takes a bit of time to wrap your heads around it, because every single set takes time. I would say that on an average to begin with, a set of LR or a set of DI will take about 15 to 20 minutes for you to crack completely. Sometimes if the set is tougher, it can take even as long as 30 to 40 minutes. So we have to be patient. Like we have to do a lot of trial and error. Sometimes there are so many clues which are given that we don't know where to start a set from. So we have to try different approaches. We have to try starting from different places. We have to assume certain things and then try to solve the set using those assumptions and then figure out whether our assumptions are correct or not. So all of this actually takes a lot of time for us to develop a sense of understanding as to how to approach the set series. And I've seen that people solve 20 sets and then they say that sir, idea is very difficult, so I'm going to give up. So that's the point of this second to last point here, that there can't be a significant improvement. Like you cannot have a palpable, measurable sense of an improvement in you solve finances, because after solving finances, suddenly you'll find the 501st, 502nd set to be somewhat familiar to a set that you have solved before. Then you will start developing a knack of interpreting the clues in a better fashion. You will better get a sense of understanding as to how to start solving a particular set. So we need to, again, patiently wait till that point of inflection arrives, and it will arrive eventually after you solve 300, 350, 400, 456. Slowly and steadily, you will start getting better at this particular part of the paper. So we have to appreciate that process. So don't be impatient. It's not like in the first month, you're going to suddenly be an expert in LRD, I know. But definitely, if you continue to do this practice on a daily basis for 4 to 5 months, you will suddenly see that you're getting a certain degree of comfort, using which you're being able to solve the sets a bit more quickly and a bit more easily.
It's like playing chess. You don't start your game of chess, first board with, probably beating somebody, right? You're going to learn, become familiar, slowly understand the moves, slowly see as to how the game proceeds. Same thing happens with LRD. You do more boards, you become better at it. You probably do 100 boards and you'll be able to beat some of your classmates. You do some 500 boards and then you are probably going to go to the next level, right? So that's how DILR also works.
Right. Kushal, anything to add here to LRD?
No, Varun, I think that's good.
Okay, then let's move on to the quant section. So, Kushal, you can take over.
All right. So we'll look at the quant section and I'll one by one take you through a few points. Now, understand that the spread of knowledge on this particular paper is turning out to be really crucial. And I'll take some time to explain it to you as to why am I saying that spread of knowledge and what do I mean by spread of knowledge when it comes to quantitative ability section. Let us understand this thing, that we classify quantitative ability section into 5 major modules. We say arithmetics, algebra, and geometry are the major modules, and we call number system and permutations and combination as smaller modules. Now, understand this thing, that your paper has got about 7 to 8 questions on arithmetics, 7 to 8 questions on algebra, and it has got about 2 to 3 questions from geometry and 2 to 3 questions put together from number system and permutations and combination. Now, what happens is that your appreciable number of question over the last 3 years that we have seen, which is an appreciable number of attempt on this paper, is turning out to be a close to a 10 or an 11 question, with a question or two going wrong, right? That is when you expect a respectable percentile on the section, which is an upwards of 98 percentile. Now, in order to get to a level of 10 attempts, 11 attempts, and 12 attempts, it is very, very important that you have the control over majority of the paper, and you can't say that I will only prepare for arithmetics and get my 7 questions right from arithmetics on that paper. Why? Because the 7 questions which are going to be there from arithmetics are not going to be easy questions. So out of those 7 to 8 questions that you are looking at from arithmetics, you will be able to solve, let's say, a 3 questions or a 4 questions out of arithmetics. Now what happens? From where do I get my next 6 7 questions? That is where the spread of your knowledge in that particular section becomes very, very important. Because if I can get another 3 from algebra and get another 3 to 4 from the rest of the 3 modules, which is geometry, number system, and permutations and combination, it makes my life a lot easier. But typically what I've seen, when people have not prepared exhaustively across all the modules, what ends up happening is that they've been able to do well in one particular part of the paper, but then they were lost because the other questions were really difficult to crack, right? So it's important that you have a good spread while you are preparing. So keep that on your mind, that you should not be saying that I'll not prepare this particular module or that particular module. You should be telling yourself that I'm going to prepare everything, and that is when the paper will start looking a lot easier to you. Now prepare for a difficult paper. Now increasingly what we all agree between us, that the paper is starting to become more difficult, and it is becoming more difficult on 2 counts. First, the quality of questions have improved. That means the questions which are there on the quantitative ability section are not very, very easy questions. So let's understand this thing, that about a 22 questions that you get on the paper, there are 3 or 4 sitters that are there spread across the entire 22 questions, but majority of the questions happens to be a level 2 or a level 3 question. And this is something that we have seen over the period of last 3 years, where we have found that the paper is becoming increasingly difficult in terms of the quality of the question. Now, the second count where the paper is becoming more difficult is the competition piece, that the competition is preparing really well for this particular section. Several engineers, or majority of the people who are writing this particular examination, are engineers. And what typically happens is that they have good calculation ability, they have good neck of equations, they've got good understanding of graphs, and that is all what is being asked on the paper. So what is happening is that your competition is becoming more difficult, and that is what is making this paper more difficult for you eventually, right? So understand that you're up against quality questions, you're up against a quality opposition as well in terms of your competitors who are writing this particular examination. So the paper is becoming increasingly difficult, and hence you should prepare during your preparation for a difficult paper. Do not prepare for an easy paper. Do your preparation in a very time bound manner. Now, I have seen students who have sat through arithmetics and said, sir, arithmetics and algebra is the major module. I'll take 2 months for arithmetics, I'll take 2 months for algebra. Now, that does not make sense to me. Why? Because that 2 months never end. And what happens is, when you stretch a topic like arithmetics for 2 months, you typically get bored. So give yourself that timeline, that 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks for a particular module, and finish it off. And when I say you finish it off, I mean to say that it is not that I'll be able to solve a level 1 question from that particular topic if I have finished the module. You have finished the module means if I give you 10 questions from that particular module, you should be at least able to solve 7, and you should be able to look at the solution of 3 and understand where you missed, right? I come across students who are not able to understand the solution also. Now, that very clearly indicates that your understanding of the topic is subpar. Please understand this thing. A time bound and a preparation which yields results is very, very important. And the preparation that is going to yield result is when you will tell yourself that at the end of the module I have to come to a place where out of 10 I should be able to 7 in a very time framed thing, that I don't take 10 minutes to solve a question. I should take 2.5 minutes to solve a question. So out of 10 questions given to me, 7 questions I can very easily solve and get all of them right. That is very, very important. Question selection becomes very important. Now, if you look at the CAT 24 paper for which the results are already out, we are looking at it at about an 11 questions correct on the paper of the quantitative ability section to get a 99 percentile. Now, understand this thing, that even when you have to attempt 11 and get 11 right, you will have to leave 11 questions on the paper, right? And if you get stuck with questions which are difficult questions, you will never find time to come back in this paper, right? So question paper selection is very, very important. And how does selection improves? By going back to the first point, that your spread of knowledge has to be really good. So if I'm comfortable with majority of the topics, then what happens is the moment I look at a difficult question, I would leave this. Why? Because I'll find more questions which are there. Now imagine you have prepared only for one module, or you have prepared for two modules, then your playing area from 22 questions comes down to, let's say, a 14 or a 15 questions, or a 16 question, and that makes your life difficult. So question selection is important, and that depends upon your spread of the knowledge of the entire section. Mocks are true indicators. Now, this is something that I can't emphasize more on. Please understand this thing, that if and when you start writing your mock papers and your scores are not getting into the comfortable region, then there is a problem with you. When I say a comfortable region, I mean to say that you should be comfortably scoring about 8 questions correct on the mock papers. That is when you will say that, yes, I've prepared really well. If your scores are in single digits while writing the mocks, it becomes very difficult for you to, ace this particular paper. So understand that your mocks are true indicators. If you're struggling on your mock, you better go back to your drawing board and understand the topics. No miracle is going to take place which will help you solve 9 questions, 10 questions, and 11 questions on the paper. That's not happening. So your mocks are true indicators. Over here, I wish to mention that I am not trying to say that on the first mock you will get 9 questions right. Even if even if that happens, that's good for you. But even if that does not happen, then I'm still fine, as long as you are very comfortable going through at least from question number 1 to question number 22, picking up the right set of questions. All basic elements need to be ticked when you are ending your mocks. And I very strongly believe that, on any kind of a mock that you are going to write, getting a 6 questions right or a 7 questions right out of a question paper of 22 questions is not going to be difficult. So please understand this thing, that do not take your mock scores lightly. If your mock scores are not improving, if you are stuck, if you are sub 10 score, it's a problem. Then we need to go back to our fundamentals again. The good news is that this section is the easiest out of the 3, and you have enough time to prepare from whichever point you are starting from. Now, why are we calling this as an easiest section? And it is irrespective of whether you are an engineer or a non-engineer. I very firmly believe that this is an easiest section. And the reason for calling this as an easiest section is that we know the boundaries in which the paper is going to always stay. And by boundaries, what do I mean? I can give you 20 topics today from where you will at least get 12 questions in CAT 25 paper. That's for sure. Because those have been standard topics for a very, very long time now, right? There are hardly papers where we have not seen simple interest, compound interest question. There are hardly papers where we have not seen mixtures and solution questions. And are mixtures and solution questions turning out to be that difficult that, they're throwing something which is never to be seen in your preparation? That's not the case. So questions are turning out to be very regular. It requires a lot of practice. That is all what I'm trying to say. But your boundaries are decided. Arithmetics and algebra is going to take a longer part or larger part of the paper. But when it comes to sections like LRDI, when it comes to a section like English, we just don't know. Can Varun give you 10 topics from which necessarily 2 reading comprehensions will come? I really doubt that he can do that. Right. So, and same way, if you look at your LRDI, they can throw a graph at you for which they will define the rules in that question set itself. That means you have not seen that graph ever previously when you're preparing, right? That very clearly indicates that that paper is difficult. Those two part of the paper are difficult to prepare for, and that is why I'm calling this as relatively easier part. Nowhere I'm trying to mention that this will take care of itself, don't worry about this part. I'm not trying to imply that. What I'm trying to tell you is, if you compare the three sections, I believe this section happens to be an easier one to prepare for in comparison to the other two sections.
So just
Varun,
to
Ajay
add
sir,
to
if
that
you
last point,
Hmm.
so when Kushal is saying is the easiest section to prepare for, what he's actually saying is that it is the section where you know what to do in order to improve. You might not very easily and very clearly be able to find out how to think about reading comprehension passages and questions better. It sometimes does not click very easily that how to look at or which clue of an LR set is to be used as a first clue in order to figure out further inferences in that particular set. But quant, that if my concepts, my basic fundamentals of say a topic like mistakes or allegations is absolutely clear, and I've looked at about 50 different types of questions, then the 51st question is going to be a combination of the first 50. So that's all. That's all that you need to do. So improving in the quant section is easy. But what we have increasingly observed as a pattern in this section of the paper is that number one, the difficulty level of the paper is going up slightly, either in terms of the length of the questions or in terms of the level of difficulty and complexity of the questions. And secondly, because this is the easiest section to prepare for, competition is preparing for it wholeheartedly, like ruthlessly. The same paper had been given in a year like 2018, that was given in 24. Then the cutoff would have gone much lower than what it is going in 24. People are now pouring their heart and soul into the quant section of the paper because they've understood that this section, just by sheer rigor and practice, they can actually improve upon the section. So that's why Kushal has made the second point here when he's saying that prepare for a difficult paper, that you need to also keep up with your competition and not take things easy. Just knowing how to solve easy questions of every topic is not going to be enough. Right. So can we move forward? This is what we wanted to talk about with respect to LRDI, VRC, and Quant as far as preparation over the course of the next 1 year is concerned. So let's move forward and let's quickly talk about where the percentile and score were corresponding to each other in this year's CAT paper. So CAT 24, of course, the total number or total score that you could get in this paper was 204. And to get a 99 percentile, right, which is what we are all writing the paper for, that becomes a target that I want to become a 99 percentiler. So that was around 93 marks, which is less than 50% of the total score. And this has been true for a very long time. For a very, very long time, I think for the last 6 years that I have been taking the CAT paper myself since 2018, the 99 percentile scores have never crossed the 50% of the total score.
In fact, it has
What
been lower.
Yeah, it has been lower all the time. Like this is much lower because 50% of 204 is 102. At 93, you were crossing 99%. Right? So, what does this tell you? This tells you that this paper is not about being an expert in all the topics in the syllabus. And as Kushal pointed out rightly in the quant section, and so did Ajay sir, that selection becomes very important. Now, selection of questions has to be done very prudently and diligently. Might not be a very big factor when it comes to VRC because there you can maximize the number of attempts, but in LRD and Quant, it um, the these two sessions hinge upon whether we are spending the allocated 40 minutes on the right questions in order to maximize our scores. So we don't have to be an expert and know how to solve all of the questions in the paper. And if you look at this year's paper, what IIM Calcutta has tried to achieve is a very similar level of difficulty across all three sections. So if you look at the 99 percentile score for VRC LRDI quant, 95 percentile score for VRC LRDI quant, 90 percentile score for VRC LRDI quant, they are all in the same ballpark. Maybe quant at 95 and 90 percentile is slightly less because, as I said, the competition is preparing very, very well. The top level people are pouring their heart and soul and preparing ruthlessly for the quant section. And people who have not put that much amount of rigor have actually suffered quite a bit as far as the total scores are concerned. But apart from that, the scores of all three sections are pretty balanced. And why I'm calling it pretty balanced is there have been years in which the VRC section 99 percentile cutoff has been at 45 and quant section's 99 percentile cutoff has been at 24. So that level of disparity is not present in this year's paper. And this might be a trend going forward that all three sections' scores to get a particular percentile will be very, very close to each other. What this tells us, which we will discuss in a bit more in the next slide, is that you cannot ignore one section for the benefit of the other. we have to balance all three sections if we are to score the magical 93 percentile, or sorry, 99 percentile. But even if you get to a 95 percentile, I'm talking about general category students, you can actually get into some of the top colleges of the country, which is way lesser than 50% of the total score. As a general category student, you can still get into tier 2 colleges very easily. And if you're not from general category, if you're from NCOBC or SC/ST category, then even at a score of 57, which is nearly one fourth, 25% of the total score, you can actually get into the top B schools of the country. So this paper is worth preparing for. And to do better than 90% of the population, you only have to score 25% of the total weightage of the paper. And if you prepare well and diligently and put in proper efforts, there's no reason at least why you cannot achieve this. If not this, just with regular practice and regular preparation, these scores are very, very achievable. So that's all that I wanted to point out through this slide. I think we can move forward.
Yeah.
So now we want to talk about the fundamentals of CAT preparation. When we have, or what we have observed is the essence and philosophy of the CAT paper over the years. We want to share that with you also, so to remember these things while you're preparing. First point is that CAT is a paper that has historically rewarded preparation. So what I mean by this is that let's say I take an innately intelligent person or someone who has got a huge command of the say topic of mathematics. Let's say I take a PhD in mathematics, who is also very well read and well traveled, constantly has got a very voracious reading habit. It's a very smart person by nature because of their habits. And then I tell them to go and write the CAT paper blindly, without ever having taken a mock test or without ever having familiarized themselves with the paper or practice anything. Will they be able to perform well in this examination? Absolutely not. This paper is made for people who work hard and prepare. And every year, preparation is rewarded. Without preparation, it's not possible to crack this examination just by being innately intelligent. Next point that we have observed, especially as a trend over the course of the last 3 years, is that speed has become key. And when we talk about speed, we mean that we are given 40 minutes in each and every section. How well do you use these 40 minutes? And how well you use this 40 minutes is not just dependent upon how fast you can solve the questions that you are solving, but it also depends upon how fast you're leaving the questions that you're leaving. Because I know people who will try a question for 5 minutes and then say that, oh, I should not be attempting this, and they will leave it. That is also a crime which is committed inside this examination by several different aspirants, because of which their scores suffer. So speed of solving questions is important, but even more than that, speed of leaving questions is important, because you only need a 50% score in order to get a 99 percentile here. So the 50% of questions that I'm leaving in the quant section, more than 50% of the questions that I'm leaving in the LRDI section should be left in the snap of a finger. So who knows how to leave questions quickly, they will have more time to spend on the questions that they are solving. And then if they can solve those questions also quickly, then the number of attempts goes up and consequently their marks goes up. Right. In the same lines as preparation is rewarded, again, I think we have discussed this in depth in both quant and LRD sections, that nothing is there to replace practice. In fact, reading comprehension, regular practice. LRDI, regular practice. Quant, practice, practice, practice. That's it. So a lot of practice. It's not about acquisition of a lot of theoretical knowledge. It's not about wrapping your heads around complex concepts. It is all about practice. Then we spoke several times about selection of questions. How do you select questions, or what determines whether you should be selecting a question and spending time on it or not? Of course, it depends upon the difficulty level of the question itself. But more than that, it depends upon whether you know what your strengths are. That when you're reading a question itself, you should know that I have practiced this kind of a question quite a lot of time and I am an expert in this particular topic, so I will be able to solve this quickly. So then I will pick it up. If I know that a topic is my weakness, or when I'm reading the question itself that this I will not be able to solve, then accepting that as a weakness and leaving it quickly is very important. So CAT is also a paper that actually rewards self-awareness. A person who understands themselves and knows that where they are good at and what they are bad at, they will be able to better allocate their time to the specific questions where from they can score higher in this examination. This is again something that we just saw in the percentile cutoffs before, that balancing your preparation and your efforts across all three sections is imperative. One section is going to take you nowhere. Number one, even if by attempting one section, let's say that you are very strong at VRC and you have not done anything in LRD or quant. Let's say out of the total of 24 into 3, 72 marks, let's say you get a 60 marks, cross the 90 percentile, get close to 93, 94 percentile. Great. But if you get only 1 mark or 2 mark in the remaining two sections, what that will do is that it will still not fetch you any kind of calls from the top B schools of the country, because the B schools also have sectional cutoffs that you have to clear. So if you don't clear sectional cutoffs, you don't have a call for an interview, and this entire exam taking endeavor is going to be a waste of your time. So being an expert in one section is never going to tantamount to anything in terms of consequence. You might feel good by doing very well in one section, but if you are not working on the sections that are your weaknesses, then don't expect a positive outcome out of this examination. And this is something which is very, very important, that CAT is not a paper that you can prepare for overnight or even for the paper in 1 month. I've seen people who try to do this, that they start preparation in the month of January, they forget about preparation because they get demotivated or they're distracted by something else, and they go and have fun for 3 to 4 months. Suddenly, in the month of October, it dawns on them that, oh, next month that is CAT. So let me now prepare. They spend day in, day out, 12 hours, 14 hours preparing and studying for CAT. Does that amount to a great score? No, it cannot. It requires preparation in small doses, stretched over a long period of time. One of our old students actually said a very nice thing. He said that CAT is a marathon and not a sprint. And that stands true to this day. Whoever has prepared for 11, 12 months consistently on a daily basis, done something with respect to practice across all three sections on a daily basis, will be the one who will successfully get a great score in this examination.
And this is one of those points where, when students ask me, sir, one thing that you want to suggest to every CAT aspirants, this is the only thing that I'll suggest to every CAT aspirant, that, you got to be consistent in your preparation. I always say that when a student comes in all enthusiasm and tell me that, sir, you tell me what to do, I can study 10 hours a day and all of that. I don't like that particular approach, because I know it is not going to be possible for the student to sustain that effort for next 7 months, 8 months, 10 months, 11 months. But when a student comes back and tell me that, sir, I don't have too much time, but I can give you 1 hour every day and I can promise you that I'll do it every day, then that's the student that I'm going to say that, yes, this is what I really want. So it is not 10 hours in a day which is important. It is 1 hour for the next 10 days each is going to be more important than, spending more amount of time on a particular day. So please keep that on your mind, that do not overdo this preparation, but ensure that you stretch it for a longer period of time.
And finally, a very, very important thing that people miss out on is that taking mock tests periodically, at least for 5 to 6 months, is very, very important. It's going to reap the kind of dividends that nothing else is going to. And people often don't take mock tests because they wait to gain a certain level of expertise or cover a certain portion of the syllabus, because they say that when I'm giving the mock test, then I will get a good score. The point of the mock test is never to get a good score. The point of the mock tests is to self-evaluate. That I might believe that I'm prepared for something, but when it comes to a test-taking environment, I will not be able to deliver on the topic that I think that I have prepared for. So many times it so happens that people say that I practiced arithmetic, I finished all my book material and my homework portal exercises for the topic of arithmetic. They go into the mock test, not a single question of arithmetic they're able to solve. Because the timer, the examination environment adds a certain level of pressure. Sometimes looking at a question in a notebook, we have access to the internet, we have access to our notes, and we are subconsciously looking at our notes, looking at the previous questions that you have solved, looking at the solution, looking at the options as the answer, and we think that, oh, now I know exactly how to solve the question. But then that does not happen while you're taking a mock test. So giving mock tests is a very, very important step of the process of learning. It is not a culmination process. It's not a process of testing yourself. It is a process of learning, that after taking every single mock test, you will learn something about yourself, about your preparation, that what you're lacking in, what are your strengths, what do you need to work upon more, how do you expand on your knowledge base, how do you increase your scores, and by what modicum, by doing exactly what can you increase your scores in the next mock test by 3 marks, by 6 marks. These are the things that mock tests are going to teach you. So taking mock tests for 5 or 4 months at the bare minimum consistently is very, very important as far as acing this paper is concerned. So Kushal, is there anything else to talk about with respect to any of these points?
No, Varun.
No,
I think
no.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's then talk about, in the same spirit, we have discussed the principles of the paper. Let me also throw some light on the common mistakes that people make while they're preparing for this examination. So first common mistake is fluctuating motivations. That on the first day, if you're joining classes for CAT, or even if you're not joining a class of CAT, you have decided that next year I am going to be the national top of a CAT. Great. Then 2 months you spend 5-6 hours on preparation. And then I've seen that after that, February comes, March comes, summer vacations, especially around May, June. People will go on vacations, people will have a lot of fun, people will not practice on a daily basis. They think that 6 months is there, 5 months is there, 4 months is there for the examination. And then suddenly in the month of August or September, they will wake up and they will again start practicing and preparing. And then they will get subpar results in the examination. This happens every single year with smart students who are absolutely capable of cracking some of the highest scores that we have ever seen in the history of our institute. They don't do justice to their potential because of fluctuating motivations. So as Kushal pointed out before, that consistently spending 1 hour, 2 hours of your day towards preparation is much, much more important, or is going to be much, much more beneficial than spending 20 hours on a single day. Second, I've seen this also, that people are practicing very, very diligently 2 hours on every single day. They're practicing something random. So to begin with, practicing anything and everything will actually benefit you. But after a certain point of time, we need to understand that what am I covering in terms of the syllabus? What am I trying to achieve in the next mock test that I'm taking? Where are the gaps in my knowledge? Where are my gaps in my capability? And then you need to channelize your efforts in the correct direction, which is what mock test actually provides you. It provides you with clarity as to where do you need to channelize your effort in. So if you don't do that, I know people who prepare by themselves. I actually know a person who prepared by themselves for CAT for 3 years without taking formal coaching, and very, very hard worker, and yet was stuck at an 80% for all those 3 years. Why? Because there was no one to actually point that person out in the right direction as to where they need to channelize their effort. So constant self-evaluation. Exactly what are we trying to achieve? How are we going to complete our syllabus coverage quickly? How are we going to improve our scores in the next mock test? That is very important to ask yourself at every step of the way before you decide what you are going to be spending your time of practice on. And in the same lines as that, what kind of wrong directions do people channel their efforts in? They channel their efforts in the top, so towards the topics and sections that they're very, very comfortable with. This year also, I had a person who for 3 months practiced mixes allegations questions from every single material of CAT that you can look at. He practiced from GradSquare material, he practiced from our homework portal, he practiced from our mock test portal. He bought books of CAT quants, 3 different books, okay, and kept on practicing misuse allegations because that is his favorite topic. What did that lead to? Nothing, because there is only 2 questions of mixture. So it's very easy to remain within your comfort zone, but we need to go beyond that, and we need to practice questions from our weaknesses also. So
And
don't get too comfortable.
just one thing to add and give you an example of a student this year. Of course, I'm not going to name the student, but that student has actually got a 99.6 plus on VARC as a section, got a score of 49 on that section. You have the same student got a score of about 21-22 marks on the LRDI section, which is also a good score, which is above a 90 percentile on that particular section. And imagine that student getting a 0.21 on quantitative ability section, restricting the score to a 94-95. And now the problem is that at that score, at that kind of a spread of the score, you are not expected to get good calls. So this is exactly the same thing, that if you get super comfortable with one particular section and continue to prepare for that, that's not going to do any good to you. Rather, I tell all my students the exact opposite of this, that your day should start with your most difficult section. Tell yourself that if I am comfortable with, let's say, quantitative ability section, then I'm not going to touch the quantitative ability section until I have prepared for my weakest section, which is my verbal ability and reading comprehension, or LRDI, or whatever may be the case, right? So please ensure you do not start your day with your favorite section. You should start your day with the section which you hate the most, or which that makes you very, very uncomfortable. So do that.
Moving forward, procrastinating taking enough mock tests. So this I think we have covered before itself, that if you are not motivated to take mock tests, or you want to cover more syllabus, or you feel that today if I take the mock test, I might not be able to perform well. This people do on an annual basis. That people keep on saying that next week I'll take my mock test. Next week I'll take my mock test, and by the time they take the first mock test, it is too late. So this is also one of the very, very common mistakes that absolutely should be avoided. And again, if you're taking mock test and you're just moving on to the next mock test without analyzing yourself, that what has happened in this particular mock attempt, where have I gone right, where have I gone wrong? If I don't sit and actually think about my performance and then understand where my weaknesses and shortcomings are, then taking that mock test is futile. It's a waste of your time. So it's very, very important that you take your mock test and then sit and analyze it, which again is a very, very common mistake that people make. They say that I took 60 mock tests, yet my scores are not improving. Why are they not improving? Because you are not understanding exactly where you're going on. And finally, I've seen people do the opposite of this also, that they take a mock test, they get a really good score, and they think that, okay, so I think this is my score. I know how to now get a good score. So I will not take one more mock test because my confidence is going to fall. So sometimes what happens is the score that we're getting in the mock test might just be a, a turn of good fortune, right? So don't rely on good fortunes unless you're consistently being able to guarantee a certain modicum of scores across all three sections. Till then, we have to keep on taking mock tests. And we need to understand that exactly how do we settle on a consistent score in every single section, and then how do I then improve that score to the next level of consistent scores in every section. So these are very, very common mistakes that I've seen people make while they're preparing for this examination. Deepak, yes, we are going to come to people who are repeating and who are taking gap year. We will talk about that in the next slide. So I hope I can move on.
I just want
Yes,
to add
Varun.
one more small
Yes.
thing here. Although Varun touched upon it, you know, if you're actually using a material to prepare for CAT, I think use that material, in entirety and finish that material in one go. So let's say, for example, you have used a quantitative ability book and you start off with the book with arithmetic. If you have completed every single arithmetic question in that book, don't go to another book for arithmetic again. Please go forward, do more questions on the next chapter now. Number system. Keep moving forward, because a lot of times I've seen students who even after 5 months are now still sitting on arithmetic, and then they spend the next 2 months on algebra, and by the time it's November, they have not even touched geometry, they have not even touched permutation, combination, and probability. So when you are actually doing your entire prep, whether it is on your own or whether it is through a coaching center or whatever it is, make sure that you keep moving ahead, because the moment you start moving ahead and you look back that a lot of syllabus has been covered by you, it builds confidence, right? And also you can probably take a break in between and do a complete revision, then keep moving forward again, rather than just sticking to one single place for about 4 months and then realizing that time has already gone and there is not much time now left to do the rest of the chapters.
Absolutely. Okay, so let me move on now to the people who are repeating gap. So before we get into this slide, Deepak, you're saying that tell me something about gap year. See, if you're worried about gap year in terms of how will you justify it inside your interviews, then don't worry about that. Like first you get a call for an interview, even if you're not taking up a job, if you're taking 1 year drop entirely, it can be explained in multiple different ways while college interviews are going on. And join us for the process for preparing for the interviews, and we will help you craft a story around it. It should not be that major an issue. But is it going to be asked by the interviewers as to why did you not work for an entire year? Yes, they will. But you can give very convincing answers to that question.
Just
Number two,
to
one thing.
answer that on one more dimension, we have had students who have had not one, not two, but 5 and 6 years of break between what they last did and then the college that they're wanting to join. Those people have also been able to convince the interviewer about what were they doing and why was there a break. So it is not that that is a red flag. It becomes a problem when you are not able to explain it properly in the interview, and I think the preparation for that comes when you start preparing for the interview, so you don't really have to be bothered about that break per se. Sorry, Varun, you were saying something.
So I want
Yes,
to
yes,
just
yes.
add one thing to this also. Deepak, if you have a gap year, okay, and you're going to take one more gap, you already know that, this entire 1 year's time, you have to now justify to the interviewer when you're sitting there in the interview room, right? You can even take up some kind of courses, a long-term course, probably. I remember we had a student who went into SPJN after that, after a break of almost a year. And this person had actually joined a data science course in IIT Madras. And he continued with that course. He finished off that course in that whole year. And he actually justified as to why he had taken that course and why did he leave his job to actually continue that course and what is he using that course for in terms of building up what kind of fundamentals and looking for what kind of job. And that actually helped him in the interview. Now, only problem here is that obviously now in the interview you also have to read about that course and go, because when you're saying that 1 year you have done a particular course, a certification course for a year, interviewer is going to quiz you on that, especially if it's a bigger interview call, correct? And you'll be asked in-depth questions. So make sure that you prepare and go for that. But take up some course. I really don't think that you need to spend 12 hours of your time preparing for CAT, right? You can as well spend about hour on something else. Attend few classes, probably online classes or something like that, and then also do some assignments and stuff like that. It'll also keep you, it'll also be a nice distraction from only preparing for CAT and keeping and wondering what's going to happen with the CAT examination. And that distraction sometimes becomes very useful, rather than being detrimental.
Deepak, we'll take questions on your audio at the end of the session. Please wait till that. Right. So that's what I also wanted to point out, that if you have a gap year, then don't spend your entire time on CAT preparation. Make sure that you have some distraction. It can be in the form of course that you're taking. It can be even in the form of taking up a hobby. We have had people who actually joined an NGO and worked in that NGO to teach people from underprivileged backgrounds. So anything like that, even say voluntary work, will actually be a very healthy distraction to have. It's not healthy to only prepare for the CAT examination because it does not take that much amount of time to prepare. And with too much amount of free time in your hands, your mind will start spiraling. Right, let me now get on to the repeat test takers part of it. So what do people do if you have taken CAT 24 and you're looking forward to CAT 25? Firstly, before you start preparing, before you again start, with classes or practicing something, sit and introspect on the last year. And think about, say, relive your journey and think about what all things you have done over the course of the last year, okay, in terms of preparing for CAT, and then use that to figure out what gaps you had in preparation. That which topics did you not particularly pay attention to, which topics did you not practice well enough, which topics are you still scared of. If this topic's questions comes up in the paper a lot, then I will struggle. This section I'm not very comfortable with. I'm very happy as soon as the VR section is over. I'm very scared before the LID section is starting. So figure out exactly what your gaps in preparation are. And that is what you need to focus your preparation on. Also figure out that what was the gap in test taking, that while taking the test, which section do you think you are not being able to manage time well enough? Figure out that which section's approach do you think was suboptimal, and how do you improve upon it? So have very good clarity on what exactly you're going to improve upon in the coming year, and then change your approach towards preparation and test taking accordingly. So it's important to know that this is what I'm going to update, this is what I'm going to change, and that is what is going to determine what I'm going to prepare. If you are going to do the same kind of preparation that you did last year, like say last year, let's say that you started with first a topic of arithmetic, complete arithmetic, then you went on to algebra, then you went on to number systems, you did not have time to finish PNC and geometry. Then again, this year's preparation is starting with the topic of arithmetic. Then that's not going to take you anywhere. It's going to lead to the same scores. So if you want to change in the amount that you're scoring, then there needs to be an approach change both in preparation as well as a strategy and approach that you're taking towards tests as well. Next, it's very important to know that what was a good fortune and what was a result of your capability. I know people who come to me and say that, sir, last year without preparing, I took up the CAT examination, I got 95 percentile in VRC. So I'm not going to focus on VRC preparation because anyway, I'm so good at it. So I will focus my entire time on LRDI and what. That's also a very, very wrong precedent to set for yourself because you don't know why you got 95 percentile. Maybe this year you got it. But do you know exactly why or how? If you do not know, then you should be again asking yourself that what led to this good score and can I replicate it? If you cannot replicate it consistently, then that was a result of good fortune. So it's important to once again introspect on your CAT attempt of this year and ask yourself that what part of his course can be attributed to good fortune and what part of his course were truly a reflection of your capability and preparation. And lastly, I know people who have done this, that without preparing, they take the CAT paper. And then they say that, sir, I'm a repeat taker, so I'm going to start from the point that I feel that I had reached last year. So last year I had 85 percentile. So let me now figure out questions of the level of 86 percentile and above. That's not how things can work. If you did not prepare for the examination and still got a great score, then even then you have to start your preparation from scratch and prepare absolutely diligently. This is just a few words of advice for people who are repeat test takers. More than anything, introspection is very important. Sit and introspect. If you prepared rigorously, especially last year, and yet you fell short of a score that you feel that you should have gotten, then ask yourself exactly what went wrong and only then start a preparation for the next year. Right.
This entire thing of preparing once again for CAT, I have seen a lot of students, who have, the previous year, the first year when they prepared, they did really well in some of the chapters. And then they have skipped chapters like geometry, skipped chapters like algebra, and then realized that in the CAT paper, when they, went and attempted the CAT paper, they were not able to do the quants part well because obviously because they did not do of the modules itself, and their entire focus was on algebra. Now, again, when they start the next year, they start off with again algebra and spend so much of time on arithmetic, and they spend so much time on the same topic which they are good at, ignoring where they had that gap. And that's what when Varun is saying figure out your gap. I want you to figure it out and make sure that this year when you're preparing, you spend considerable amount of time on that gap rather than what you're comfortable on, right? Because this is a natural, this is it becomes very comfortable for us, to pick up and spend a lot of time in a day on something that we love doing. So spend time on something that you don't love, which is tough, which is difficult, and push it forward, and make sure that, you fill that gap at least, by the time you're taking the mocks.
So
Start your
Subiksha
day
has a
with
question.
something that you hate the most.
Yeah, start with something that you hate, really.
That really helps you to convert that into your strength.
So Subiksha has a question here. Sir, I have only 70% in my 10th and 12th, and graduation is it difficult to get call from a top AMS. So Subiksha, see, what we need to be very clear about is why are we doing this MBA, right? What kind of aspiration do I have in terms of, the kind of career that I'm looking forward to? And will I be able to crack a college, even with my background? Now, the thing is, you can't change your background. There is no point worrying about, what you have gone through in your 10th, 12th, and graduation. But what is important is to look forward to and see as to how we can crack. So let me just give you a few examples. Your 70% in 10th, 12th, and graduation is not going to affect if you're going to look at a college like, let's say, MDI, right? And MDI is a great college, way better than a lot of top IIMs, right? Now, if you're going to look at your 10th, 12th and, worry about it, then obviously, it's of no use because you are putting your effort and what do you call, energy into a wrong place because that's not going to change anyway, right? But there are colleges like IIM Calcutta. If you crack a really big CAT score, you can still get into it, right? You can look at colleges like FMS, which does not give so much more of a weightage on your 10th and 12th, correct? You can look at colleges like IIT Mumbai, which are way better than a lot of IIMs, correct? And way cheaper too, to get into and, do your MBA. So you have to prioritize as to what are the kind of colleges that you're looking at and where is it that you can, with a good score, make it to. And you have different levels of score. At 99, you can make it into certain colleges. 98, you can make it into certain colleges. Pick up, the colleges that you will really want to look forward to, rather than worrying about, what has happened in 10, 12th and graduation.
Also, I might sound a bit difficult on this note, but I would say that, that is a very good reason to not pursue something. So if you want to give yourself a good reason to not pursue it, then that's a good reason. But if you really want to do something well, you can't go back and change your 10, 12, and graduation scores. What you can change is by looking forward, you can change your CAT score, you can get a very good scores on several other entrance examinations and do your best. That's what you can do, and just focus there rather than saying Ahmedabad will not give me a call because of which I did not prepare. Then that's a good satisfactory reason, but then that does not change anything.
And I also believe that in India, there is a good B school for everyone.
Yes.
No matter what your profile is, there is a B school for everyone. So if you get a good score in the CAT examination, you will have a seat available for you to take up in one of the top B schools of the country. Yes, top IIMs, when you say top IIMs, ABCL might be slightly difficult. Most might be out of reach. But as Sir said, you've got MDI, you've got even colleges like IFT,
IFT,
international level to
NMI,
NMIMS, XLR.
Excellent.
Right. Okay. Finally, last slide is that people keep on asking us this question that should we take up coaching? Is it possible to prepare for CAT by ourselves? I feel that every single person in this country can prepare for CAT by themselves. But why do then people take up coaching? So, what value does actually coaching say provide? Of course, there is this quality classes, coverage of fundamentals. You have got doubts. You're not very clear with concepts. Then the classes will provide you with all of that. Very, very strong fundamentals and foundation level knowledge. It will also give you proper book materials and test series that you will have access to. But is that why people join coaching classes? Actually, no. Because I think that most of the topics in the CAT syllabus, in the quant syllabus, especially we have also read in school, our school teachers have taught us well. A lot of reading we can actually do ourselves and we can understand how to solve questions. So then what exactly does classroom coaching provide and why should people look forward to it, if at all? Is number one, it provides conceptual clarity, as I said before, conceptual clarity of all the topics from foundation level. So it's very difficult to actually figure out that where you can actually gain foundation level knowledge of every single topic that is part of your CAT syllabus. So that is one thing that, of course, classroom coaching provides. More than that, beyond that, it provides structure to your preparation. So which topic is supposed to be covered after what? How much time is supposed to be spent on a particular topic while you are preparing for this examination? If someone is instructing you that through structured classes, you know that when one topic is ending, when the next topic is starting, when do you have to take the mock test, when do you have to take the second, third, fourth, fifth mock test, when does revision start? All of this classes will actually provide you with a very good clarity on. Third thing and a very important thing that classes does is uh, it's an ingredient for motivation and discipline. Very, very essential kind of an ingredient because several people give up on CAT preparation because they are very irregular in their preparation and then suddenly they lose motivation because of it. But if you have classes every single week, you come to the classes, you sit in the classes, even if you have not studied what was taught in the previous class, you see people who are sitting in the classroom with you answering questions and they have practiced something that was taught already, then that will tell you that, oh, everyone else is moving ahead. I am lagging behind. That is motivation. Coming to the classes every single day, even if it is an online class, attending classes on a regular basis provides a discipline that you will remember that I have to give CAT. I have to give CAT. Sometimes, if you don't have those classes, I've seen that people forget about the fact that they are actually preparing for the examination. And last thing, of course, is benchmarking. So benchmarking, because several people will be taking up classes along with you. So you know, in comparison to others, where do you stand? Apart from all this, I feel that a good coaching class, a good institute for CAT preparation, what it provides is mentorship. Remember, we discussed at the very beginning of the session that direction of effort is very important. I've seen people who prepare directionlessly, very hard, but absolutely without direction, not knowing that exactly where they have to put in their energy and effort into. That should not happen when you have a mentor to actually guide you throughout the process that you can turn to, that suddenly you're confused as to whether I'm doing something right or I'm doing something wrong. Is my time being spent well enough? Why is it that even after putting so much of effort, I'm not being able to reflect that effort into my mock test scores? So someone to talk to and someone to actually provide clarity on a personalized basis on what your issues and problems are. That is what an ideal coaching should provide. And we actually take pride in the fact that that's where that we know here. Kushal knows, Ajay Zener knows, I also know. We believe that CAT preparation is not a one size fits all. It's not like someone can give you a set of instructions that if you follow these instructions diligently, you will score 99 percentile. That's not going to happen because every person is different. Every person has their own individual strengths, weaknesses, pace of learning, amount of questions to be practiced before they get better. Sometimes our way of thinking is different as compared to what the questions demand us. So we need to we need to understand what exactly the students' problems are before we can give them exact instructions that will cater to their needs. And that is what we pride ourselves at GradSquare. So if you feel any of these things are important to you, then you should go for classroom coaching. Don't take up classroom coaching because I will get good book materials and test series, because that you can get even without a proper classroom program. Right? So understand the importance of classes and then take up the classes for these reasons. And then you will find that you're making better use of the classes in order to improve upon your capability to score well in this examination. So Um, Ugander has a question that if I'm starting from scratch, can you brief me on what structure of preparation should be followed? So that's what we do through our classes, Ugander. So when people are preparing from scratch, we actually start off with very fundamental classes in quant called the drill classes. And we tell people exactly what to do after what. So how to first cover the fundamentals before diving deep, when to take your first mock test, what to expect in your first mock test, even before that, what do you need to prepare in order to be ready to take up the first mock test. So after every single module is over, what do you need to practice for? How long do you need to practice that particular topic? So all of these are very minute details that we actually mention in our classes. But broadly, if you're asking me what to do if you're preparing from scratch, as I said before, remember the principles of preparation that we discussed earlier. Balance your studies across all three sections and make sure that nothing is being left behind. At the same time, syllabus coverage, moving forward one after the other and not remaining stagnant in the same topic is very important. And of course, eventually from the month of March, April, start taking mock tests. That is broadly the structure that everyone should be following if you're preparing for the first time.
Mohammed Faisal, understand this thing that this is not about spending X, Y, Z amount of hours on a preparation. It is about spending that much time that makes you comfortable at the end of the day with a particular topic. So for one individual, it might be 2 hours. For another individual, it might be four. Another individual, it might be 10. So that cannot be answered as this many number of hours you should be spending. First thing. Second thing, when you are attending the classes, you would know what things to prepare when you are sitting back at home and what topics need we have already covered in the classroom. So what we have covered in the classroom is something that you need to finish before you come for the next class. And that for one individual might require 2 hours, for another individual it might require 20 hours. But the intent is what that work should get over. So that is what you should be looking at. And that is what, to my mind, is the best answer for the question that you asked me, that how many hours should I spend a day? It is not about the number of hours. It is about getting yourself comfortable with that topic.
Okay. Deepak has a question. Just to answer your question in short, Deepak, yes, the coaching is paid because I have to eat also, right? So I need to earn my livelihood. So yes, the coaching is paid, but we do have our own YouTube channel. You can subscribe to GradSquare Mentors. We put up a lot of educational content there, so you can use that to prepare. If you want to ask your question still using your mic, then let me know. I can give you access to the mic. Do you have something to ask?
What
Let me know on
should
the chat.
be the recommended time to be allotted for each question, for each section? Anup, that's very difficult. When you prepare, when you start preparing, you don't have to really time yourself, but your ultimate level where you want to reach is exactly that I do not take so much amount of time for doing a particular question. But when you're starting to prepare, I would not recommend 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 4 minutes to solve a question. Rather, you should be focused on learning the concept. With the timer ticking right next to you, it becomes difficult for you to learn the subject first. So first you learn the subject, then you start timing yourself, and that is what is better, rather than looking at specific time for a specific question.
I think Anup is also asking about, how much time
Examination per
we
question.
per question in the
Actual
examination.
paper.
Yes,
In the
yes, Deepak, 2 minutes,
examination,
Deepak. I'll give you the access
in
to
the
mic after this. Yes.
examination, you need to understand that when you look at a question as far as quant is concerned, I think anything above a 3.5 minutes time spent with and you are not certain how to do the question going forward, then it's the time for you to leave that question and move on. 3.5 is too much of a time spent. Your decision making should be ideally in about 1 minute, that should I be doing this question, should I not be doing this question. Once you have decided that you should be doing this question, it should not take more than another 1.5 to 2 minutes. So that's why I said 3.5 minutes is a top limit when you are talking about November 25, when you are going to write the exam.
So just to add to that, Anup, the question that you're asking is what we meant by saying that one size does not fit all. Because to begin with, maybe you are someone who's taking 5 minutes per question in the mock test. Then your next target is to take 4.5 minutes per question. Then slowly, when you achieve that, then your target becomes 4 minutes per question. There might be people who might start off with 2.5 minutes per question. So then they have to up their game from there and then go to a total of 7.5 minutes per question. So it's not set in stone. But to get a 99 percentile, if you want to really attempt the optimum number of questions, then 2.5 to 3 minutes per question in the quant section, I can tell you should be spent. LRDI and VRC that's a very vague question because there are so many different types of questions that we cannot pinpoint. the number of minutes to be spent on each question. Deepak, I've given you
Also
access
depends
to.
on the difficulty level of the paper too.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
Deepak.
Yeah, hi, sir. This is Deepak. This year only I have attempted my CAT 2024 paper. Yeah. So I would like to share my experience, like how I have attempted the paper. Could I?
Yes, yes, tell us.
Yeah. So this time I wasn't aware that the CAT paper would be there. I got to know very late about the paper, how the CAT would be, but I didn't given enough preparation. But I have attempted for the experience, for gaining the experience in the first attempt. So I got a very good experience. The major mistake which I have made is that I have attempted all the questions, which led to my negative marking kind of thing.
Okay. So, Deepak, that's a very common mistake, and this is what we mean. That when we tell students that we mentor them through the process, we need to understand that it's not like a board examination where we have to attempt all the questions. And this is a paper which is all about selection. So things like that, like very, very fundamental things like that, also you will learn when you put yourself in a kind of a coaching environment where someone can mentor you through the process as to exactly what needs to be done while you're taking the paper or taking the mock test. So if you prepare diligently, you will yourself understand a lot of these things. So of course, you have taken the paper last year without preparation. So don't consider that as a proper attempt, right? Start from scratch this time. Don't consider yourself as a repeat taker. Start from scratch this year. You'll figure out a lot more things about the paper, what needs to be done and what
Yeah.
does not.
Sir, and another one more thing is that the preparation, there are a lot of YouTube channels, right? Like Rodha, they are like Rodha sir. I am like Rodha, Cat King, those all has been great mentors for that. But sir, that is a bit confusing that we are learning from different YouTube channels, sir.
Exactly. So that is our point also, that it becomes a too many cook situation. See, there is so many
Yes.
different approaches that, or they say that all roads lead to Rome. Right. Yeah, so all roads lead to Rome. So there are several different ways to do well inside the CAT examination, but you cannot take all the roads to Rome. You need to figure out whose instructions you're going to follow. Pick up one person who has got a proven track record and you know that you can trust their advice and judgment, and then follow their instructions. And here is where I believe that their instructions should be personally to you. I can give a set of instructions for everyone. But then when something does not work for you specifically, then you should have the opportunity to ask that this is not working out for me. Should I do something differently? So pick a mentor who can actually help you achieve that. Right. Anyone has any more questions or doubts? Then you can put it on the chat. I think Mohammed Faisal has put up a doubt. But in the meanwhile, if there are non-GradSquare students who are looking forward to have any kind of queries, then you can call this number.
Mohammed Faisal, you can reach out to me personally on WhatsApp. You have my number with you. We can discuss this offline.
You can reach out to Sanjita or to Archana on this number, 730505346. If you've got any queries regarding enrollment or any other services that we provide, by the way, we also provide mentoring services and also career counseling services. So anything, any kind of doubts or questions you have, not just with respect to CAT preparation, but your careers also, you can reach out to Sanjita or Archana.
As far as the CAT coaching is concerned, we'll have a demo session on Sunday evening, 7 o'clock. You can reach out to either Archana or Sanjutta for the details of that particular session.
Divyanshu, you're a classroom. So, Divyanshu, as a classroom student, you can just call us.
Yeah,
It's
Divyanshu, that
about
would be better that you drop us a message.
what cutoffs will be applicable to which B school. Sir, do you want to take that up from
Uh,
Ranga?
you please go to the YouTube channel. I have put up the cutoffs of general category students, NCOBC cutoffs, SC cutoffs, EWS cutoffs out there. Uh, that should be very, and those are very comprehensive videos. I would suggest you to go through that.
You can simply type Ajay Zener and B
Your
school
category,
cutoffs.
yeah.
Category and B school cutoffs. It will throw up the videos. or you can reach out to either Sanjukta or Archana. They'll help you out if at all you are not able to figure it out. Because it all depends upon the category. It depends upon whether you are engineer, non-engineer, male, female. All of these are various factors which are there before you look at the cutoffs. So it will be better that if you look at the
So you will,
video itself.
yeah, you will see all these videos that I've already put up with the cutoffs. Right, so this is one of them. Right, so there are plenty of such videos. 95 plus percentile, which all colleges are there. Right, 97 plus percentile. So SC category cutoff, which colleges to apply with 80 plus percentile, 80 percentile. So this itself is a topic which will take us a lot of time to discuss if we're going to do that.
So just to give you an example as to why that is so difficult to point out, Manavna, is because there have been years in which a general engineering male candidate has not gotten a call from IIM Shillong for interview at a 99.6%. But we have had non-engineer female category students, general, who have received the call from IIM Shillong at as low as 89%. So that's why it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly what percentile is required. But broadly, the cutoffs, I think, on our YouTube videos, you can actually find, and you can figure out that based on your category, your profile, and your academic background, what is a percentile that you can expect a call from the different colleges. All right, I think that's the end of the questions.
Yes,
I hope the
Varun.
session was helpful. So all the best for everyone who's preparing for CAT 25. And as I said before, do let us know if you need any help or support.
Wish you all the
Thank
best,
you.
guys. Thank you.
All the
Good
best.
night and take care. Thank you.